Stacy, good to see you. How are you?
Hello.
Hannah,
Hi, Stacy. Hi.
we got
Hi.
we got
How's Enzo?
He's great.
I love that everyone knows Enzo.
He's like the PML mascot.
He is. He is.
Love it. Michelle, good to see you. Beth, good to see you. You guys look great. Where are you Michelle, where are you calling in from? You got a cool background there.
It's my little cabin in the woods, which is my house.
I love that. Full time. Sweet. It looks very warm and cozy in there.
There's a real fireplace.
You know, the sub two property that I bought and just moved into has a real fireplace, and I feel like they're real selling points because it just makes the vibes different.
Sure
Very
does.
cozy.
Yeah. But I guess I lit a fire the other day and my smoke alarm went off because I forgot to open this damper. I didn't even know that was a thing. But now
Oh
I'm
my
kind of
God.
curious. Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad because I live in like a condo and, you know, the other people heard and it was kind of embarrassing. But anywho,
The smoke.
it was a little bit of smoke, but it was like it wasn't enough smoke for anyone for me to be concerned until a couple minutes after the fire alarm went off. When the fire alarm went off, I was like, I guess the smoke isn't escaping. And then I researched and I realized I had to open like this thing called a damper, which literally a month ago I didn't even know that was
Nuh-uh.
a thing. But for some reason, the fire in my house doesn't really warm my house. It warms like the 5 square footage around the fireplace. I'm like, how can I get this to like produce heat throughout the house?
It's just for the vibe. It's just for the vibe.
I think so. I think so. Michelle, do you have any advice?
I don't because I'm in the same situation. I just ended up putting, here, I'll show you. I put a bench right next to the fireplace.
So that you
So
can be
you
close.
can sit like there's the fireplace and there's the
I love
bench.
it. You can just be close if you want to be warm.
Exactly.
Super cool. Loving the vibes. Okay, cool. Well, good to see everyone. Let's hop into the material for today. Last week I realized Stacy like messaged me as soon as the Zoom was over. She was like, there was like three more sections on that vetting the deal, right? So we have the community here. Last week we mainly focused on running comps. I think we looked at two properties. Was that helpful for you guys to see like how to analyze one property versus another, what I'm looking at, comping the property? Okay,
Yeah, we love it.
good, good, good. I'm happy to hear that. So the other three that I forgot, or I didn't forget, I was too focused on the main point, which was running the comps, because running the comps is a huge, huge piece of it. So the other points that I didn't get to cover last week that we'll go over today are determining the risk to lend, underwriting the deal, and structuring the deal. Those are three main points also under the umbrella of vetting the deal. And you guys know that in school that you can come onto the classroom section and see all of the actual material that I go over verbally if you ever want to reference it or have questions. Side note, we are transitioning on our platform, right? We have over 350 people in here and we have a couple people on a Zoom. I want this to be easier for you guys to get access to. I want more people to be engaged. And so, because of that, you guys give me like a big, huge smile or a big, huge frown. We're going to be transitioning the community to Facebook, a Facebook group, so that people can get in there, they can collaborate very easily. And then we'll still have these Zooms that are happening on a weekly basis. But of course, people aren't familiar. A lot of people aren't familiar with school. And I don't have any intention of charging for this information. I want everyone to have access to it. I want you guys to be engaged. And so a lot of people already have the habit of going into Facebook. We're going to go over to a Facebook group and have everyone in there. Everyone can communicate super easily, DM each other on a platform that people are already familiar with. So that's a side note that I'll touch more on towards the end of the Zoom. As of right now, let's stay focused on the meat and potatoes. So coming off of last week, we looked at comping the property, right? Running comps to analyze the risk. I won't go into this. We have the recording here if you guys need it. This is also on my YouTube if you guys need it. That's all last week's call. It's like an hour long call going over a couple properties that we comped. The next thing is, okay, now that you have the property comped, you know what it's worth. You have to determine as an investor your personal risk tolerance. You have to determine what is the risk of lending on this deal. Couple things to consider here. Number one, by far, is going to be the loan to value, right? If someone has a property that you have comped, this is determining the risk to lend. Number one, by far, number one priority is the loan to value. If someone has a property you have comped and you've determined is worth $200,000 and they're asking for a $250,000 loan, that's considered risky. That would be a very risky loan, right? So you have to determine, what am I okay with? What am I not okay with? If not, what am I not okay with? If I determine that this property, if I comp this house and I determine that it is worth $200,000, what am I safe lending? You know, do I want to lend less than what it's worth? Do I want to lend exactly what it's worth? Or do I want to lend more than what it's worth? Now, most people want to lend less than what it's worth. And that's what I would advise every single conservative private money lender to do. So loan to value is the first priority, right? It is the first priority. How much debt is on this property and how much is this property worth? That is called a loan to value. The second priority, and I have here over 75 to 80% in first position is risky. And I'll tell you guys a couple reasons why as we get into some of the later material. You want to kind of sit, especially if you're doing as is value, we tend to sit between 75 and 85% of the as is value on our loan amounts. So if I have a property that's worth $100,000 and it's as is condition, the most I really want to lend on it is $85,000. That's the most I want to lend out. Will I lend 90? Will I lend 95? Potentially. I'm not saying that I wouldn't, but then I'm getting into the mindset, okay, this is a more risky loan than if I would have lent 75. You guys following me? I'm not saying one way is right or the other, right or wrong, but you have to be cognizant of what you're getting yourself into. So first priority, loan to value. Second priority, when you're determining the risk to lend on the property, is the lien position. What lien position are you in? And this comes back to loan to value. If you're doing a second position lien, but there's 80% equity in the property, you're lending way less than what it's worth, then it could be a safe deal. But if you're doing a second position lien and there's very little equity, then that is a more risky deal. That's a more risky loan opportunity. Lien position is important because it comes down to claim of collateral. If I'm the first lien position, nobody can collect money before me. If I'm the second lien position, there is one person who can collect money before me. If I'm the third lien, there's two people who can collect money before me, and so on. You guys get the point. But the risk of being a higher lien position is that you don't have all the control. When you're in a first position loan, if you want your capital back and the borrower is defaulted, you can foreclose and that's it. Everyone else is wiped out. Whereas if you're in second position, if you foreclose, you still owe first position what they're owed. And if you foreclose, you're responsible for that debt and so on for the higher positions, right? So lien position is the second priority. How risky is the loan based off of number one, loan to value, and number two, lien position. The higher positions you get into, the more risk you can consider the deal having. Hem, what's going on? I want to answer all the questions.
Oh, sorry. Since you're talking about lien position, I had a question. So let's say there is two people in lien position one. Who gets paid first?
They both get paid at the same time. If there's two people, are you talking about a foreclosure?
No, just like a PML deal.
So they get paid at the same time, exactly. So if there's let's say there's $100,000 loan, you put 50,000 in, and I put 50,000 in, and me and you agree, I don't want to be first, I don't want to be second. Let's just own first position together. When that loan's paying off, we're distributed based on our ownership of the first lien position.
Okay, got it.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. If there was a first and second lien, if we decided you put 50 first and I'll put 50 second, then no matter what, under any circumstances, you will always get paid before I get paid. Because we are not in this together. We are separate lenders. Whereas if we did the first position loan together, it'd be like we partnered on that first position loan. So let me know if that makes sense. Does that make sense to the rest of you guys?
Yep. Yep.
If not, feel free to ask me any questions. Anita, what's up?
Yeah, so in essence, you can only have one party in first position unless you're joint venturing on
Correct.
that loan. Okay.
That's correct. Only one person can be in first position unless the 2 people or 3 people, whoever those parties are, agree that they want to partner on that first position loan. So that is 100% correct. Anyone needs clarity there, I'm happy to clarify. All right. So we have our first 2 priorities. What is our third priority? Can anyone guess? Anyone guess what our third priority is? And this is determining the risk to loan. Michelle, you know, because you came to our mastermind. you can say the answer. It's fine. When would it be beneficial to JV instead of taking first a loan? Travis, I want to make sure I understand your question. Been a long time. If this is who I think it is, it's been a long time since I've seen you. But that question is very loaded, and I want to make sure I answer it specifically the way that you're asking it. So come on and unmute yourself if you can. Michelle, what is the third priority?
The borrower's ability to repay.
Yes, borrower's ability to repay and or the borrower's experience, right? Can they complete this? Do they have the wits, the experience, the past, the history, the credibility that they can actually borrow this money, use it for what they said they were going to, and complete the project? Now, all of us should be lending on real estate. So really, has the borrower done real estate deals before? Have they flipped a property before? If they have, how many times have they done it? A strong borrower should be able to show you at least 3 properties that they bought and sold within the last year, within the last 2 years for sure, because the market is changing all the time. For them to be considered, in our opinion, a strong borrower. So borrower experience is third priority. Oh my God, it is the Travis that I thought. What's going on?
Hello, good to see you. We should catch up sometime. Good. So what I was asking was, I came into this a little bit late, sorry.
No worries.
So you're talking about first and second position, how you get paid first if you're first, second if you're second. And you also talked about joining. When is it more beneficial to join someone in first position instead of taking a second position instead?
So the only time that it would make sense to join someone in a first position is if the first position loan is a certain amount and that other partner doesn't have enough. Otherwise, it's always just better to be your own lender. But let's say that the borrower is requesting, I don't know, let's say the borrower is requesting 100,000. Let's use simple numbers. And I'm like, damn, I really want to do this loan. Like, I am really fired up about this loan, but
Yeah.
I only have 70 grand, only have 70K to invest. I might call you, Travis, and be like, hey, do you have the other 30? Me and you will partner on this and we'll
Right.
go in first position together. I wouldn't put you in second position because technically the whole 100 is first position loan. Like, let's do this loan together. But if the borrower was only asking 70 and I lent him 70 and then the borrower realized he needed an extra 30 and consulted you, that is
Right.
a first and second position loan.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thank you.
No problem. No problem at all. So like I was saying, borrower experience is third. Remember, at least 3 properties where they bought and sold. And you want to collect those HUDs, right? You want to see the receipt of real estate, which we call a HUD or ALTA statement, when they bought the property and when they sold the property, and making sure that they made money on the transaction. Okay, last but not least, determining the risk to loan is the state laws, lending and foreclosure laws. This is the most underrated point, I think, when lending. Most lenders, you guys are going to be well equipped because most lenders do not pay attention to this unless they have been through Abraham and I's training, which a lot of people now seem to have. So that's always exciting. But state lending and foreclosure laws are really important. So let me ask you guys, let me propose a question. If you're lending on a property and the borrower doesn't pay you back, do you think it's going to be you're more likely to loan or less likely to loan? You can answer by saying more or less if it takes you 2 months to foreclose or 12 months to foreclose. If it takes you a shorter amount of time to foreclose, are you more likely to do the loan or less likely to do the loan? You'd be more, exactly. If it takes you longer to foreclose, you're less likely. It's a pain in the butt if you have to foreclose, right? And so considering the foreclosure laws, this has nothing to do with the borrower, almost nothing to do with the underwriting. There's a piece of it that relates to underwriting, but it's almost nothing to do with underwriting. Where am I loaning money? And if my borrower defaults, how many months do I have to go without getting paid, without getting my principal back? And am I okay with that expense? Am I okay losing, let's say your payment is $1,000 a month that they're supposed to be paying you. Am I okay to not get that $1,000 a month for 12 months, for 6 months, for 2 months, for 24 months? In places where Travis is, like Hawaii, it could take 2 years to foreclose on a property. It could take super long. So you guys want to make sure you're paying attention to the foreclosure laws, and that 100% impacts the risk of lending. Because if it takes you longer to foreclose, that's longer that you've missed interest payments and longer that you have to account for in your underwriting. So 4 priorities here. Can anyone repeat them back to me? Michelle, you look like you have a burning desire. Stacy?
I take notes so I can
I
repeat it
can.
back.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Loan to value, lien position, borrower's ability to pay or to repay, and determining risk to loan. And I did take the mastermind of your guys' class too. It was awesome. Virtually.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Perfect. This is like an overview. This is like one week at a time, that mastermind. So I'm glad you're here. It's good. It's definitely good to review. But yes,
And
one thing that I didn't hear, I
did
heard.
learn about that.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that to your point in regards to a lot of people not knowing foreclosure laws, I lent in Florida for a year long for a pretty substantial amount. And I learned in that mastermind one of the foreclosure laws and how you can't lend as a private money lender to someone that's in a primary position, like I didn't think of that, because I'd look at other deals where people are going to move out of that house, but that was their primary, and so that was like a new aha moment for me, just looking into those foreclosure laws. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I love it. I'm glad that you mentioned that. We try to provide as much value. In that Florida one, we actually had a Florida attorney come and tell all about Florida specific laws. Our next one, we actually already scheduled our next one. It's in Atlanta, March 1st and 2nd. So we're trying to find someone in Atlanta right now who can come and do as good of a job as Bishoy did for everyone in Florida. But super glad you mentioned that. Anita, you posted something in the chat that says repeat, please. Just let me know what you're looking to have repeated, because we covered a lot just now.
Well, the 4, what Michelle just said.
Oh, the 4 things. Okay, so loan to value. How much am I lending versus how much is this property worth? That is the number 1 determinant of risk. Number 2, lien position. Am I first claim to collateral? Am I second claim to collateral? Am I third? Is this a 4th lien position? Did the borrower even offer a lien position? I know for a long time, I kept seeing people do loans with a promissory note and personal guarantee. You need a lien. And we have a paperwork section that we're going to be going through, but you 100% need a lien on a property. So first, Anita, loan to value. Second, what position are you? Ideally, you want to be first claim to collateral, first lien position. Number 3, borrower experience. Have they done this before? Can they perform? Can they finish a fix and flip? Can they show me their past HUDs? And lastly, number 4 is the state laws. How long does it take to foreclose in this state? If my borrower defaults, how long is it going to take me to reclaim this property, to auction it off, to foreclose? So those are the 4 points there. Make sense, everybody? Awesome. All right. So now we go into underwriting the deal. This is something that we worked through before. Very briefly, we focus more on comping, but underwriting. How do I actually determine what is a safe amount to loan? Now, this safe amount to loan value is what we'll call it. The safe amount to loan value, that number stems from the comp, the as is value. You cannot figure out what is a safe amount to loan without first comping the property. Everyone with me on that? Put a 1 in the chat. You have to first comp in order to figure out what is the safe amount to loan. So let's walk through this. So this is an example. when you are figuring out what to loan, a safe amount to loan, you have to determine what is the as is value. From there, you minus the interest and late fees for the months that it takes to foreclose. So let me give you guys an example. I'm doing a loan in Georgia. In Georgia, I know it takes 2 months to foreclose. My loan is for $100,000. I'm charging the borrower $1,000 a month. So if I have to pay my foreclosure attorney $5,000 to start the process, and I'm gonna miss 2 months of interest, right? And I think this property is worth $100,000, then the most I should ever loan on that property is the $5,000 in fees I'm gonna incur. The 100,000 minus the $5,000 in fees I'm gonna incur, minus the 2 months of missed interest, right? So that's $7,000 that is immediately gone by just having to take it over, by having to foreclose. So I should never, ever, ever be lending more than that amount. You guys follow me so far? We have the as is value minus the fees that you're going to incur foreclosing, minus the amount of months that it takes for you to foreclose. So this is why it's very important to know the foreclosure process in the place that you're lending, because you have to incorporate that into your underwriting. All right. So then we have our attorney costs, our foreclosure costs, and you can loan that amount or less, and that will be considered a safe loan to value. Safe loan.
Alexis, we're not seeing that spreadsheet.
Oh, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, but it was like a desktop. There, now we see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Loan less than this amount. So here's a real example. Property as is value is $450,000. That's what we determined. How come the as is value is $450,000? Well, it needs no repairs. So the ARV that you see here and the as is value is the same. Why? Because this subject property that we're looking at is in tip-top condition, right? So let's say in order for me to, let's say the borrower defaults. I'm always planning that the borrower is going to fall off the face of the earth and I'm going to have to take the property over. In this area that I'm lending in, I'm going to miss 3 months of interest before I can foreclose on that property, right? This is some steep late fees. I would never charge this much in late fees. You have to be careful of usury, but these are very steep late fees. But first and foremost, we're going to account for the 3 months of missed interest, right? So let's see, we have $20,250 divided by 3. So this borrower's monthly payment was $6,750. That $6,750 times 3 is this number here. So the monthly payment to this borrower was $6,750. How did we come up with that? We likely times the $450 loan amount or the as is value by 1.5%. Yep. So if we loan this person 100% of what it's worth, their monthly payment would technically be $6,750. So 3 months of missed interest would add up to $20,250. Some late fees. If you're getting missed payments, you want to make sure you have late fees, right? Your borrowers are being penalized for missing payments. Now, these late fees are very steep. $100 a day is kind of aggressive as a lender. Very easy for someone to get behind. You want to make sure you're not committing usury in your late fees either. Consult an attorney. But in the example here, we have $9,000 in late fees. Boom, added on. And lastly, we have that it's going to cost $5,000, to pay an attorney to start the foreclosure process, complete the foreclosure process. So all the fees that we will incur foreclosing are $34,250. Is everyone with me so far? How we got to that number? Perfect. So if we determine that the as is value is $450,000, and we're trying to figure out what we should loan on the property, well, if it's going to take us 3 months to foreclose, which is 3 months of missed payments, we have 3 months of late fees, and we have attorney cost, we can take the original value, the original as is value, and subtract the $34,000, all of our fees and missed payments, and we come out with $415,750. Could you lend this? Yes, 100%. And be safe? Yes, 100%. But note, that's a 92% loan to value. Now, if that's what the borrower is asking, if it's more than what the borrower is asking, great. You can loan that money and be safe. If you want to be extra conservative, you can tell the borrower, well, I only feel comfortable lending you $315, right? 70%. Let me ask this question. because this is what would be in my mind if I was on the other end listening to myself talk. When do I determine when I lend them less than what I can and as much as I can? When do I determine when I lend them less than what I can and as much as I can? When would I choose 415 and when would I choose 315? A lot of times for us in our business, this number, what we lend them, is based off of what they're buying it for. So if this property is worth 450 and the most I can loan them, because it takes me 3 months to foreclose and $5,000 worth of attorney fees, the most I can loan them is 415. If someone were to bring me this property and say, I'm buying this house for 400,000, do you think I'm going to lend them 415? Even though I could and be safe? Even though I could lend them 415 and be safe, if they're telling me they're buying it for 400,000, would I lend them as much as I could, even though I'm safe? No, because I want them to have some skin in the game. Right? So I would maybe tell them 370. So they have to bring 30 grand to the table. So this is as much as you can loan. And you come up with that amount by taking the as-is value minus your missed payments, minus the amount of months that it takes for you to foreclose, minus your foreclosure fees. Do you always lend that exact amount? Not necessarily. You want to know what people are buying the property for, and you can go based off of, is this someone I feel comfortable loaning 100% of the value to? I can loan up to 415, but if they're buying it for 415, do I want to give them 100% funding? How much skin in the game do I want them to have? Anything less than this amount is a good loan. Anything less than this amount is safe because we determined that it's worth 450. We've determined what it's going to cost to foreclose, right? Anything less than this amount is a good amount. So let's continue. Does that make sense to everybody? Everyone following so far? How we come up with these numbers?
Alexis, I would think also like borrower experience too, like your relationship with the borrower. If you have a long history with the borrower, they always pay on time. Maybe you do the upper. Yeah.
That's a great point. So is this someone that you feel comfortable with, right? Do they have a history of paying on time? Do they have a history of doing good deals, of performing, right? All of those things will impact the loan. The loan amount is here, it's clear, and how much of that you have this full bucket that you could lend them. How much of that full bucket do you want to give them? Is it all of it that you want to give them? And how much do they really need? What are they buying it for? Right? Okay, second position. Second position.
I'm seeing your desktop again.
Okay. Share. Here, how about this?
Good.
Okay, cool.
When you say safe, by the way,
Mhm.
Are you safe because in the contract when you write it that if they default in their payments, then you just get the value from the house, like your money back from the house itself?
Correct. So if we're collateralizing with the real estate, if they do not pay us, there's two things that can happen. If there's no other debt on the property, if we're the primary debt, the first lien position, there's no one behind us, you could they could sign over the deed to you and now you own it and you could sell it. If you have 415 in it and it's worth 450, great, you just made money. You could sell it for what it's worth. But if there is other debt or they don't want to sign over the deed, let's say they're dead. Let's say they can't sign over the deed, even if they wanted to, they die. You can foreclose, right? And so that's how you would get your money out. When you foreclose, other people will bid on that property based on what it's worth, and you get your money out by someone else buying that house from your foreclosure.
Gotcha.
Yep, Michelle?
You just said like you would get them to sign the deed over to you, but isn't the deed in your name already if you're in first position?
So there's two types of deeds. Great question. There is a warranty deed, which is the ownership. That's the ownership of the property. And then there's a security deed, which is a lien against the property. Deed of trust, security deed, those are similar words. In some states, it's security deed. In some states, it's deed of trust. In some states, like Florida, it's mortgage. But there's lots of different types of deeds. One deed, warranty deed, is the one that these people own it. Whoever's on the warranty deed is the person that owns it. Ownership of the property. Security deed is the lender. Make sense? So that could be confusing. I'm glad you asked that. Okay. So now let's go into second position. We just talked about first position only. If you get presented a second position deal, there's two things that you have to be in extreme awareness of. Number one, what is first position owed? What are first position terms? And we'll walk through how first position impacts you as a second position lender. But the other thing that you have to be extremely cognizant of, we're going to determine loan to value here in second position. The other thing that you have to be extremely cognizant of in second position is the borrower's ability to repay, to complete the project successfully. Why is that so important? Well, if your borrower does not perform in second position, let's talk about first. If your borrower doesn't perform in first position, you foreclose, the property's auctioned off, no problem, your hands are clean. If your borrower doesn't perform and you're in second position, you still foreclose. However, people are bidding on your second position. So who here would bid on a property that you don't know what's owed on it? Would any of you guys do that? You're trying to buy a house, but you don't know what's owed to the bank.
Nope.
Absolutely not, right? You'd be insane. So if you have to foreclose in second position, no one is going to be, the likelihood that people are bidding is very, very low because they don't know what first position's owed, and there's no way for them to find out, right? So if you foreclose in second position, you will most likely be the owner. If you foreclose on a property, no one bids, it's deeded to you. I'll say that again. If you are foreclosing on a property and no one bids on it, that property is deeded to you. So as a second position lender, if you have to foreclose, you are basically taking over that house. And so since we are in the business of lending money and not doing flips, especially miles and miles away from our home, when you are lending in second position, you have to have like 150% confidence your borrower can and will complete the project, or you should expect to be the new project owner. Does that make sense to everybody? And this is something that people don't consider in second. You are 100% betting on the jockey. Can the guy get this done? Can the gal get this done? So we're going to look at loan to value, but that is really important when it comes to second position loans. Stacy, you have something?
Yeah, just for clarity's sakes. And so the second position loan, you're saying that in first position, people bid on it, if they're in the foreclosure process and then they're bought out, right? And second position loan, you're saying they don't know, or, they're not aware of the liens that are on the title. And so that second, how come they're not allowed to bid on that, I guess is what my question is.
So people can bid, but no one does because they don't know what first is owed. And sure, they can go into the county records and see what the first position lien was, but they don't know how behind first is or the fees that first had. That stuff is not recorded. That's a private mortgage. So
Right.
they would be ridiculous to buy the second position and own that property without knowing exactly how much is owed to first. Now they could take a guess. That's why I'm saying the chances aren't zero, but it's very, very little. There's very little chance that someone is going to bid on a second position foreclosure.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because if you're in second position and you actually foreclose, first position loan now becomes your loan. So you need to know how much is still outstanding because you are going to now be responsible for that debt.
Exactly. 100%. That's correct.
Wait, so what happened to first position loan person?
You are responsible to pay them, and they will probably, unless they're current, unless you start paying them currently, they'll probably foreclose on you now. This is why second position is risky, because if you are in second position and you have to foreclose, the likelihood that people bid is low. So now you're the owner, which means you are responsible for the first position debt. I've seen this happen on sub twos countless times where someone lent on a sub two, their borrower couldn't pay them, they foreclosed on the borrower, or they got the borrower to deed them over the property, and then the lender, who was the lender, is now responsible to pay that mortgage payment, or else they're going to get foreclosed on. It'll be on their record. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is really important. And this is why 99% of my deals are first position. Second position is like It's like the girl in the red dress. Like it looks so good, like it could be good, but it's really just bad for you. Like don't do it. Don't do it.
Is there ever a scenario where you would do that? Not, I mean, like where you feel comfortable doing that, I guess.
So the only scenario where I would feel comfortable doing a second position deal is if there's more than 65% equity in a property. That's where I would be okay with doing it. Otherwise, it's just too risky. Because if there's more than 65% equity in a property, I'm happy to own it. I would love to own it.
Mhm.
I hope they default. But if it's tight by any means in an area that I don't like or that I don't know, it's just not worth the hassle. You know, even for me, this is me personally. Now I'm speaking personally. I'm not speaking from like a teacher or educator perspective. For me personally, if I have to own something that I'm not familiar with in an area I'm not familiar with, that's a hassle for me. It's just, even if the borrower is a great person and they can prove to me, like people drop dead all the time. I just want nothing to do with it. You know, I want nothing to do with it.
And Alexis, is that like, so 65% equity after first position
Yes, after that's with both
and second
both-
position fees
yes,
too,
that's
right?
both debt. That's all the debt on the property. No more than 45% debt, or excuse me, 30 to 35% debt on the property. Somewhere, I'm getting my math all mixed up, but you guys know what I'm saying. There has to be 60 to 65% equity, more than 50% equity in the property.
Right. So like if a property is worth 100K and you're loaning only 35K to them, is that what you mean?
So if a property is worth 100,000, I don't
Right.
want the total debt on the property to be more than 40,000.
You just want to make sure that if you were to take over, if you were to become the owner of the property, that you can sell it where you'd be able to get your money back and pay off any first position loan that's on it as well.
Exactly. And literally without a doubt, like without a shadow of a doubt. Without a
I'm currently in this situation, so my heart's like going a million miles a minute.
Well, here's the thing.
I have a ton of equity. I've got well, not including what he owes me, an additional 600,000. So it's just I did it a year ago. It was my first loan. I'm learning all these things, but the one thing that I'm confident in is my loan to value of what I lent at.
Love it. That's literally the number one priority.
You know, all those things. And so I would owe the first position, but it would all, you know, there's enough equity in the deal.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's the first priority. Loan to value is the first priority. So as long as you feel comfortable there, everything else is second in line. Like a lot of people consider doing a second position, but they don't look at the loan to value, and that's a big mistake.
And the timeline is the other thing I didn't consider when I originally did this. This is in Florida, you know, and I was thinking it was more like 2 months, and it can be up to 2 years, which is a lot of holding costs.
Yes.
Question, Alexis.
Sure.
Is there a way to find out what liens are actually on the property? What if, you know, the person that you're asking for the second position loan isn't really truthful about what the first position loan is?
Love it. So that's like a paperwork question, and you should always do a title search. You should never lend based on what the borrower told you. Always have a closing attorney or a title company run a title report on the property. And if you're going to loan money, you do it through title and you get lender's insurance. So if they tell you, we ran a search on this property, this is a second position loan, you can sue them if you're not actually second position. You have that insurance to cover you. So you never just want to take the borrower's word for it, because you know borrowers lie. You need to always do a title search on every property that you're lending on, even if they already own it. Even if they can show you their warranty deed that they own it. Say, okay, I need to make sure, I need to do a title, like we need to go to the title company or closing attorney so that we can do a title search and confirm there's no other liens and I'm actually in second position. And if they drop out on you at that point, then they were probably lying. Because no one should have an issue with that. Anyone who's borrowing money knows that that's a normal requirement. All right, cool. Maria, you had your hand up. I don't know if you still have a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there a way to find out in the first position? I know, about pulling the title report to see that if there's a first lien on there, but is there a way to find out what is owed on that first on that mortgage?
Yep. So typically, if someone already owns it, this would only be applicable if someone's already owning it, not getting a new loan. If someone owns it and they are asking you for a second, ask them for their most recent mortgage statement, or ask them for their most recent statement. Like those statements will always show, here's the unpaid principal balance, here's what the upcoming payment is. And if they have a private money lender that lent them in first, ask for, if you are a second position lender, you should 100% have the contact info of the first position, because you need it. You need a copy of the first position promissory note. You need a copy to see what the first position's owed. You cannot lend in second without that. So yes, Maria, you can ask them for that, but you should have that all up front before you do the loan as well.
Right. Okay, that's a good point. And then if it is a mortgage company and they're showing the statement that they're making the payments, is there something that you could do to protect yourself? If, for example, you decided to go with the second position, is there something that you can do in the paperwork that you get a copy of that mortgage statement every
Yes.
month to make sure it's being paid? Okay.
So this is something Michelle knows this, Beth knows this, Stacy, you guys know this. Whenever in any scenario where you're doing a second, we recommend in your promissory note a requirement. If they do not do this, they are in default of the loan and immediate balloon happens, that they show that first position was paid. If not, then you could be getting screwed as a second. So you have to know that. You have to know monthly that first is getting paid. And that should be in your promissory note. If they do not send you that confirmation, I know some friends of mine actually get the login of first position. If they can't send you confirmation that first is paid, immediate balloon of second, calling the note due. And that's it. So great question. Great question. Okay, so let's look at loan to value in second. We just underwrote loan to value in first, loan to value in second. So things you have to consider if you're doing a second position loan. Again, we're starting with the as is value, 450. You have to subtract all the unpaid payments, late fees and interest of first position. This is why it's important to have a copy of that first position promissory note, because it impacts your underwriting. What does first position charge if they're late? What is first position payment every single month? That impacts your underwriting. So you have to account for that. So you have the as is value, you subtract the first position fees, then you subtract your fees as the second position and the amount it takes to foreclose, and then you have your final amount. And second position is not my favorite for many reasons, but honestly, if you do the underwriting correctly, a lot of second position deals aren't worth funding. They aren't worth touching because there's so many fees that can be added up that pushes second position out of equity that they thought they had. I'll go to this example in just a second, but just to give you guys an idea, if we have a property worth $100,000 and it is as is value, and there's a first position lender for $70,000. Most people think, okay, great, there's $30,000 more that I can loan. Borrower's asking for 30, no problem. The house is worth 30. But let's go through this scenario. What if the borrower gets abducted by aliens, as our good friend Pace likes to say, right? What if we can't get a hold of the borrower? Well, that means they're probably missing their $700 a month payment to first position, right? That's 1%. 1% is 12% over the course of a year. They're missing their payment to first position. And first position probably has some late fees. Let's say it's $200 because they missed their payment. So that's $900 a month right there. Let's say first position, because they're not getting paid, initiates a foreclosure and goes and takes on $5,000 worth of cost, right? These fees are starting to add up. And so by the time we get to foreclosure in whatever state we're in, whether it be Florida, maybe it's 12 months, Georgia, maybe it's 2. We won't even talk about Hawaii anymore, Travis, because I like you. I won't say anything bad about it, even though Hawaii is beautiful. But let's say however many months it takes to foreclose, all those missed payments. So now by the time we actually get to foreclosure, and whoever is reading out what first position's owed, where it starts, first position is now not owed $70,000. Their fees have added up, and they're now owed $82,000 or $85,000. And that second position lender who thought they were okay to lend $30,000 is now guaranteed to lose money because that house was not ever worth more than $100K. Do you guys see how this is like adding up and becoming dangerous as second position? And again, I will say this until the day that I die. I look at deals through a very, very, very conservative point of view. You can lend that 30, and I'm fine with you doing that. But you have to know the risk that you're taking. I'm fine with people doing risky deals. What I'm not fine with is people doing risky deals and thinking that they're safe. So I have to explain all this stuff. All right, Stacy, what's going on? Oh, you're muted.
Okay, I'm just making sure I understand this correctly. Is it possible, let's say that the second position lender, is pursuing foreclosure because they haven't received their payments, and so they're pursuing that. Can the first position lien holder also at the same time pursue foreclosure on the same asset, so you can have two?
Yes.
Or the ball is rolling?
100%. And that's why it's very important to get their contact information, because you ideally want to work with them. They don't have a lot of reason to work with you because they're first. They could just say screw you. But like if you're foreclosing and you could show them that they're still going to get paid when you foreclose, then they could potentially be willing to work with you. The other thing that you can keep in mind as a second position is if your first position forecloses, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're wiped out. It just means that there's a chance that you're wiped out. So back to our example, that property is worth 100,000, and the first position was originally lending 70. By the time they foreclose, their payoff is 82. If some idiot at the foreclosure pays 120,000 for it, the first position gets their money, and then second position gets the remaining, and then the borrower gets the remaining. So it doesn't guarantee that you're wiped out. So if you want to let first position foreclose and there's tons of equity, it might be easier for them to foreclose. And if you're confident that the people who are bidding on this property will bid for more than what it's worth, and there'll be proceeds left after first position's paid for you to get paid a second, it might be easier for them to foreclose than you. Because if you foreclose a second, you're going to own it, and then you're going to have to get rid of it, and then you're going to have to pay off first. But I would not take a huge chance if you're not like 150% sure. I would not take a huge chance, because if people don't bid more than what first position owes and there's no proceeds, you're done. You're wiped out, and that's the end of that's case closed. So I would not let them. I mean, they can do whatever they want because they're first, and you can pursue foreclosure and they can pursue foreclosure at the same time. But ideally you want to be in communication with them, and you guys don't want to be doing stuff that's conflicting each other.
Right. So I've asked for a payoff amount from the first lender, and I got that, and so I'm good there because it was what I thought it was. But now now I'm wondering, so you're saying when it goes to auction, they don't have to, there's not a minimum amount to where they have to pay off the lenders?
There is a minimum amount for whoever is the one foreclosing. So if first position is owed 100,000, they don't care what second and third and fourth are owed. They're going to start the bid at 100,000. And if somebody at the foreclosure bids 105, first position gets the 100, and whoever's second gets the 5.
Can't you pay them off before they go into the foreclosure, though, before they go to the auction? Can't you pay off the first position instead of it going to auction?
Of course. You can call them and buy their loan.
Right.
Or better yet, you could get the what's it called? The borrower to deed you the property. And then you could sell it for way more than what it's worth. But if they won't do that, of course, you want to collaborate with first position to find a solution. Whether that be paying them off, whether that be you foreclosing or them foreclosing. Ideally, you want to be, talking to them.
Mm-hmm. So is it whoever is foreclosing there, the ones that set the minimum bid on the property?
That's correct.
Okay.
So if I'm foreclosing in second, no one's going to bid on it. We all know why. But I could say I'm owed 45,000. That's where to start the bid. Bid because no one knows what first is owed. If I'm first and I'm owed 82, I could say start the bid at 82. I could even say start the bid at 80. I'm willing to lose $2,000, just get rid of it. But whoever's foreclosing determines where to start the bid.
Okay.
Cool. All right, so let's take a look at this example. Oh, Travis, do you have a question?
Yeah, so about like loan amount between 70 and 100% is at one point you had said for some of them. If you're at 100%, I guess, right, and you're first position, and all these late fees start incurring, right? To the point where they're not paying it back. They're like at 10K in debt and the late payments and such, right? So when you foreclose, you probably want to go 110 at that point, right?
Oh,
Or
yes.
would you would,
want to
okay,
include everything that you're owed.
right.
And that's
Okay.
why we work it out of our loan to value, because we're accounting for everything that we might be owed by the time we have to foreclose.
Right. But if the value, if the property doesn't sell at 110, then you're just kind of stuck.
If the property doesn't, if no one bids on it for 110, then
Right.
you can either tell whoever's crying out the auction, which is a term for like whoever's the auctioneer.
Yeah.
You tell them, I'm willing to accept, here's what I want you to start it at. I'm willing to accept this bottom line. And if no one bids for what you're willing to accept, you now own the property. It's deeded to you. It's yours.
Right.
You
Okay.
own it for whatever you have into it.
Okay.
Loan to own.
Loan to own.
Everybody loves a good rhyme. All right, cool. Let's go. Let's finish this. We got 9 minutes on the clock. All right, so seems like you guys all understand the second position concept of first can now build up fees to push you out of equity that you thought you might have. So let's just take a look at this. As a second position lender, when you're underwriting for loan to value, you look at the as is value. You take any fees, late payments, late fees, foreclosure costs that first position might incur. You subtract that from the as is value. Then you take your fees, your late payments, your foreclosure costs, and you subtract that from the number that you have. And you loan that amount or less. So if we're looking at a property that's worth $450,000, we know that first position fees are going to be $27,000. We take that $450, we subtract the 27, and we're left with, wait a minute, as is minus first and first position. Oh, okay, great. So you have first position, their loan amount, and their late fees. So if you're in second position, you have to take into account first position principal, their missed payments, their late fees. And so here's the math around that. We have a property worth $450,000. The borrower is saying we have a statement from the first position that first position's owed $350,000. So immediately we know that there's not, without a shadow of a doubt, there is not more than $100,000 equity in this house. We all can see that math clear as day. Then we have to account for first position missed payments and fees, which is here, which accounts to $27,000. So once we account for first position missed payments, fees, and principal, there's $72,000 theoretically of equity in this property. So now we go through, there's 75% of as is minus first position fees here. Don't pay attention to this for now. But now we would go into what would I lose? What would I lose as a second position lender? If I had to foreclose, you have 3 months of interest, you have late fees, you have your attorney fees, and the second position fees total to $14,000. So as a second position lender, you want to take the as is value minus first position, their original principal, minus first position fees, minus your second position loan, minus your second position fees. Are you guys following me on this? Yeah. The spreadsheet is a little hard to follow because it's an image and not a spreadsheet. If I have a real spreadsheet, I could show you very easy. But are you guys following me theoretically on what I'm saying? As a second position lender, you have to account for first position principal, first position missed payments, first position fees. And as a second position lender, you have to account for all of that before you determine how much equity is in the property worth lending on. So that is very important. Okay, we have 4 minutes and we have one more section. I'm always available afterwards, and I want to make an announcement towards the end of this, but structuring the deal. So all of the deals I do have monthly interest payments. I advise anyone here to collect monthly interest payments from their borrowers. There are 2 reasons. Number 1, the borrower is motivated to get the project done. And number 2, if at any point there's a problem, you know right away and you can foreclose. I've seen people who get into a situation where they have a 6-month balloon. They find out something went wrong at month 2, but they cannot foreclose because the borrower technically isn't in default and doesn't owe them anything. You want to have some stipulations, and a monthly interest payment is one of those stipulations that allow you to move forward on a foreclosure at any point if you don't like something. So a defaulted payment is one of those reasons. Every loan that I do has monthly interest payments. Your rate is obviously going to change depending on what you're charging your borrower. All the loans that I do have 6-month balloons, but structuring the deal includes the loan amount. What are you charging? How long is the loan? When is it due back? the interest payments along the way, any points or fees that you have, any penalties. And this all changes based on the deal that you made with the borrower. Again, my biggest recommendation is to get a monthly interest payment. All of our loans have a 6-month balloon. However, for us, if our borrower is current, we allow them to extend. Since we operate on an annualized interest rate, it's in our best interest to have the money deployed. So if they're current on the loan, we don't want to call it due and then just do another loan. We'd rather just keep the loan out that we have. As long as they're current, we allow them to extend at least up to 3 months. So that's one thing that we do. You guys can implement if you like. But this structuring of the deal, these terms, this is what's going to make your promissory note. So all of this is under the umbrella of vetting the deal. We have comping, which we went through last week. We determined the risk to lend this week. Remember the 4 priorities: loan to value. We have the lien position, borrower experience, and the state that you're lending in. You move forward to underwriting. Underwriting specifically on loan to value is what we focused on today. And then structure. What is the structure? How do you get paid back? How do you, when is the loan due back? What is the interest rate? All that stuff is up to you and the usury laws, of course, of your state. But we always encourage to get a monthly interest payment. Okay, boom. Any questions on what we went over? A lot. That's why these things are recorded. And for those of you guys that went through our PML mastermind, sincere apology, because it's 2 days of this straight, just talking and taking notes. But it's good. It's good. That's what you need. But of course, we have these weekly sessions. And this is open to anyone. Honestly, more people should be taking advantage of this. But this is open to anyone. Weekly sessions to go through step by step in case things are missed or there's holes in the knowledge. Questions can be asked. But any questions on what we went over today regarding finishing up vetting the deal?
Alexis, I have a question on that last thing that you covered about extending the loan.
Sure.
Do you adjust the interest rate when you extend the loan, or what do you typically do when you extend the loans?
We typically will keep it the same. We have implemented a couple times before that there's a 1 point extension fee. So you can charge an extension fee.
Okay.
For us, it really depends if we like the person or not. We charge points sometimes we don't. It's just do we like this person or do we really not know? Do we not really like this person? If it's a friend, we won't, And that's the cool thing about being a private money lender. You can do stuff like that and no one can judge you for it. If I don't like you, I'm going to charge you a point to extend. So this better be paid off at month 6. No, but I wouldn't say that. But you get the point. You can choose. But those are the things that you can do, to incentivize them to pay off before then. If they need to extend, you can charge them a point or half a point or whatever you feel like is fair, whatever you guys agree to.
Okay.
Awesome. Travis, yeah.
So again, a bit late and I didn't go to the last session. Are these loans generally about 6 months or is it vary quite a bit?
So that on average, I've seen loans pay off between 4 and 7 months. So if someone pays it off early, I can't force them to hold the note. If they're done, they're done. But I have seen before loans pay off a month after they're supposed to because they listed on the market at 0.5 months in 2 weeks and it's under contract and the contract is going to take 6 weeks to close or whatever the case may be. Very rarely do I see stuff going into the 9-month range. It usually means something's going wrong or something's definitely not going to plan. But between 4 and 7 months is the average. I would say if I'm going to nail down, 6 months is where we have our balloon for a reason. That's if I had to nail down one number, 6 months is the average time that it takes. I've seen loans get paid off super early too, though. People just were doing a quick wholesale and they called it a fix and flip and they borrowed from us for a month or 2 or whatever. But that's the average.
Now, I guess as a generalized question for loaning, and I'm sure it ranges because the amount of the loans itself, but how many loans can you manage at a time?
You manage as many as your heart desires. You manage as many as you want. I think as an individual without a system, you can easily manage 15 to 20 loans.
Whoa, okay.
Because it's not like there's you have to go build a product. You send a wire and then you just make sure you're getting paid once a month. If you're a really organized individual, you could probably manage at least 50.
Wow. Okay.
You just have to have a spreadsheet and make sure, okay, this person paid me, they paid me, they paid me. That's it. That's the business. Did I get paid? It's a
Right.
yes or no question, right?
Like, yeah.
After you get past like 30, I like to have systems. Like I like to, because if you get past 30, things are being paid off in new ones. That's where the real business gets complicated. When things get paid off and you're doing new ones, is like is the complication. Things are getting paid off at least 2 or 3 times a month, and you're doing new ones 2 or 3 times a month. You have a business and you need a system. But if you're
Right.
just if you're like a PML and you're lending your 3 or 4 million, you can manage that on an Excel spreadsheet or
Right.
even notes on your phone.
Sure. I guess when you get to that upper like 30 to 50 echelon of like how many deals you're or loans you have out, is it just a matter of funding at that point? Is that like the
It's a
biggest
matter of funding.
problem?
Well, it's a matter of funding and processes. Your processes have to be airtight because you have
Right.
to now have a frame. You can lend based on who you're working with, but you don't want things falling through the cracks as you're
Right.
scaling up. So you should have your clear processes documented on what's important, paperwork, for example. I have Ari here who's been doing all of our paperwork for all of our loans, but like everything that we've went through is like very clearly documented what we need before. Like, for example, one thing, we authorize the release of the wire. Whenever we wire directly to title or the escrow attorney, and we have to authorize the release of the wire. A process for us is before we can authorize the release of the wire, we need insurance, we need executed closing documents, and we need our inspection report. If we don't have those 3 things, that wire ain't going nowhere. And so if you're starting to do a lot of loans, like you have to have processes like that documented so that you're not forgetful. Oh, did I get the insurance? Did I get the inspection? Did they send me executed docs yet? Whereas if you're doing 1 or 2 or even 3 or even 5 a month, you can kind of keep up with that, on a notes app or on Excel. But if you're starting to do a lot, then you want to have sort of a system and a documented system, more importantly.
All right.
So hopefully that answers the question. That was a long-winded answer.
Oh, no. That was great.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys. So last thing here, I won't hold you up. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Stacy's going to drop in the group chat the link to this private group. This is an old thumbnail that I have, but we are transitioning school to this group. I'm going to send out an email tonight to everyone in the school community. Again, we're doing this because I want more people to be engaged. I want more people to come on these Zooms. I want more people to interact with each other. I think Facebook is one of the easiest social networking platforms, and I want this to be easy for everyone involved. So school was good while it lasted, but we are turning a new page now. I'm excited. We're going to have tons of people in here. We have about 350 people in school, I think. And so this Facebook group could grow to thousands and thousands of people. Maybe even a year from now, I'll go back and watch this video and be like, whoa, I remember when we had 3 members. So hopefully you guys can come in and be some of the first members. Stacy will drop the link to this. Make sure you join this before the end of the night because we will host the next Zoom through the Facebook group and we'll be fully transitioned from school. Michelle, what's up?
Will we have access to the prior recordings from the Facebook group?
Yes, great question. So I think this is more of a Stacy question, but Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure the recordings will be in the featured section, and every single thing that you see on school, which is here, will just be in the featured section on Facebook here. So today we're vetting the deal. Everything that we went over is right here in this Facebook post. And then once we do a recording, the recording will be in that post in the featured section. So feature will be like the classroom section of Facebook. You see all the things that we're going over in every single week's recording and criteria.
But we're not going to be submitting homework or going through it the way school is set up.
So we will still be submitting homework, but it'll be as a regular Facebook post or a regular submission in the group. School has all these different topics, which is great. But most importantly to me is engagement. And so I'd rather you just make a blatant post than have to figure out how to classify it as mindset or classify it as general discussion. So that's the game plan for now. This is tentative. It could change. We could come in here and say, hey, we're going to put the Zoom recordings in Google Drive, and here's the link to the Google Drive. Those things can change, and as we grow more and more people, I'm sure there will be some things and new announcements to be made. But right now, this is the most important thing to me, making sure you guys come in here, get acquainted. And as I mentioned, engagement. Facebook, everyone, who in here doesn't go on Facebook? Who didn't go on Facebook today? Like none of us. We all went on Facebook. Oh, Travis, you live in Hawaii. I wouldn't be on Facebook if I was in Hawaii either. I would just be staring at the mountains and the ocean. That's it. That's what I'd be doing all day. I don't even know how you found out about this Zoom. No, I'm joking. But Facebook we all use. So I want to make it easier to use. I want to make it easier for people to interact with each other. And so I will see you all in the group. If you guys have any questions for me, you know how to reach me. You have my email. Hopefully you guys have my phone number. If you don't, I'll drop it in the chat right now. Well, that didn't work out well. 804-939-72. All right, cool. I put it in the chat if you guys need to reach me. That's my direct number. And I'll see you guys next week on the Zoom. Thank you so much for being here. Peace out, guys.